All
Just because
right,
there's like
let's get going
there's
then.
three. Nice. Okay. So hi, I'm Nick Mercer of Concussion Talk, and this is Lauren. Lauren, good.
Hi, I'm Lauren Zayaks. I'm a physical therapist with Wasatch Physical Therapy in Park City, Utah. And then I also am a co-founder of PhoenixConcussionRecovery.com, which is an online website for concussion process.
Yeah, everybody check out her Facebook. Hey, Kate. Yeah, check out Lauren's Facebook page and her website, and definitely try to look all the advice she gives on the website. Well, her Melinda Rolstead and Lauren Zives. So, Lauren, do you want to just tell these like two people or three people or just two people about your history with concussion stuff? So,
Yeah, sure. So, do you want to know more like my own personal history or what I do for treatment?
How you got concussions and how you got started on this?
So I had my first concussion when I was about 12 years old. I broke a helmet and a pair of skis hitting a tree. I was sword fighting with my sister on the side of the hill. And at that time, nobody knew what a concussion was. And then I bumped my head a few more times. And then in high school, I got hit in the back of the head with a softball. I was putting on my catching gear in foul territory. And someone just yells, head, like really nonchalant, and then a ball hits me in the back of the head. So then it was wake you up every hour, on the hour, that kind of thing. And I remember walking around at my dad's office later on that day, like falling into the walls. So like nowadays that would have been a huge ordeal. But back then it was, wake her up every hour.
This was in Hartford?
This was in the Hartford area, yeah. I mean, we had like a school athletic trainer and stuff, but this was like a million years ago. I was in high school 15 plus years ago, so I mean nobody knew anything back then. And then I had a few more interesting little adventures, but my TBI was in 2014. I was snowboarding and I hit the left side of my head. I had a helmet on, so it didn't matter all that much. It probably protected me from a worse injury, but I still got a concussion or TBI, and I had temporal lobe damage, so memory deficits, speech deficits, organizational issues. Your brain ricochets inside your skull, so there were other areas that were damaged as well. I had vision problems, some attention problems, auditory processing issues, and I was just really struggling in my regular everyday life. When I was an athletic trainer working in sports, concussion was always one of those things that terrified me. It was one of those things where like you tried to pass that off to the head athletic trainer and have someone else take care of it, just because it always felt to me like we weren't doing enough, but nobody knew what we should be doing. So now, since all this research is coming out in the last few years, it sort of makes me feel better about the fears that I had as a young professional, because we really weren't doing enough back then. Nobody had any idea what we were doing. And now there's so many more clear guidelines. It's so much easier to progress people back to sport and make safe decisions as long as you stay up to date on the research. And so I was struggling for about the first 9 months after my TBI and going to a bajillion different people, and I would go into people's offices and they would just tell me I was crazy and that I was fine and not to worry about it. But I just knew in my heart of hearts that I was not fine. I was not me. I graduated at the top of my class for 8 years straight at Northeastern, and all of a sudden I couldn't read a piece of paper. I couldn't read an article. I couldn't do anything. And so I knew that that wasn't right. And then I eventually found some really incredible people. And this goes out for, like, I follow Amy's Tribe on Facebook, and people are constantly saying that they don't like the one healthcare provider that they've seen, or maybe unfortunately they've seen 3 healthcare providers and they didn't get an answer. But you just have to keep going, and you have to keep trying to find that person who's gonna fix you and help turn your life around. And I found some of those people. I started vision therapy and inner ear therapy, or vestibular therapy, and things started to improve. And so I decided that that was what I was going to do with my life, is I was going to fix people who were in a similar circumstance to me, or ideally fix them before they ended up in the same circumstance as me. And that's how my practice at Wasatch PT was built, with some really amazing people like Melinda with Think Head First, and Jen Thomas was one of my mentors, who's an OT down at the VA in Salt Lake. And then we built Phoenix Concussion Recovery together to try to just get the education piece out there as easily as possible. So that's sort of my story.
Yeah, that's a longer story than I have. I'm just that's one interview.
My swan song is pretty long, Nick.
I was just reading out that we're live, and we got like 7 people now, so not a big, not a lot of people out there, but still. But yeah, my story is just of like one brain injury. When I was doing my master's degree, just started my master's degree at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada, and all these people here from Canada, all of my friends that are watching us now, and my sister. Leslie, see Leslie Mercer? See that? Leslie Mercer?
I liked her. I liked her comment.
She's my sister. Hi, Leslie.
Oh, hi, Leslie.
So sweet. Anyway, yeah. So I was in Victoria, BC. I was at that point. I was doing the day I was injured. I was probably the healthiest, most fit I've ever been in my life, and now I'm issues and brain drain and stuff. So, but I was I was doing triathlon at the time. Well, not at the time of injury, but during my stay at my time in UVic, and I was doing triathlon, and every Friday of that summer of both 2003, we would go for a ride. Just four or five of us would go for a ride around Victoria, just just outside. So good roads and good hills and stuff. And and yeah, so that day there was the night before, I guess, or the day before, there was that summer, actually that whole summer, there was a bunch of forest fires in BC, and there's a forest fire at the lake that we usually swim at. So, and that's around where we go cycling after. We go a route behind that lake, around that lake, and so anyway, so we had to take a detour that day, and we went down the route, and today is all blank for me, so I'm just going by hearsay. But I saw where the action happened, so I know what tree I hit and stuff. So that's fun.
Wow.
Anyway, we're going down the hill, and apparently I swerved to avoid someone coming up the hill. They're going to load a cyclist, and I hit the tree. So I flew off my bike, hit the tree with my helmet head first, shattered my helmet, and then I was in a coma. I was unconscious, and they rushed me to the ER, and the doctors put me in a 2-week induced coma, and my sister and my parents flew out, and I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and then I back in St. John's, Newfoundland for I guess about a month, 6 weeks, a month. I was in Victoria Hospital, for 6 weeks, including a ICU for a coma, then the neurosciences unit, or what it's called, and then I was here for a month and same thing, and then inpatient rehab for 5 months, and I had to learn to walk again. My speech is still off, and that's probably as good as my walking. Walking is not as stable as it was, and I can't run, can't jump. I've had double vision since my injury, and which makes obviously doing all this running, cycling, and jumping, and that very challenging. Walking too, and I had double vision. My walking is not as steady, not as steady, not very steady at all, and I don't use any devices. I don't use a walker or a cane or anything, but it's not good walking, and my speech is obviously off, and I get this fatigue, Lauren, you know this, you get tired just from random times.
That is like the thing. There's so many things that drive me crazy about living after having a head injury, but the fatigue drives me crazy because you just feel like you can't do as much as you used to be able to do. And it's so interesting about brain injury because you and I have such different stories, and our level of function may or may not be different, but some of our symptoms are the same. And it's weird sometimes being somebody who is a higher functioning person after a brain injury. Like I read people's posts about how much they're struggling, and you feel almost guilty saying that you had a brain injury, but that's what it is. I mean, if you can't come up with a word when you're trying to have a sentence, you don't know where you are, you lose your car in the parking lot every week. I mean, I think that qualifies as a brain injury, right? Yeah. But we all get there different ways, and we have different experiences, but a lot of us experience a lot of the same symptoms, whether they're really severe or they're really mild, and they all impact our lives because you only know the life that you lead. So Like, I don't know what your fatigue feels like, but I know my fatigue drives me crazy because I don't want to need a nap. I don't want to do one activity a day on the weekend. I want to get up at like 6 a.m. and go crazy all day, and I can't do that anymore.
You got up earlier. I've seen you on like YouTube or not YouTube, like Facebook or whatever, like some ungodly hours. But,
well, maybe it is for you, but it'll be like 7 or 8 for me.
I know, like for me, it's like getting up at 6 is a nightmare. Like,
no, I can't. When I moved to outpatient, I was like, I'm not treating 7 o'clock patients. It's not happening.
you get up really early though.
I do. It takes me a long time now to warm up. Like I used to be if I had to be at class at 8 o'clock, I got up at like 7:50 and ran like my hair was on fire into the classroom, right? And I could perform and I could get a great grade and I could understand what's going on in class. And now I need like a solid hour and a half to like have coffee, like get the brain cells firing. And that, there are people who tell me like I shouldn't be as honest about my symptoms because people will think I can't do my job. But first of all, that's discrimination. Second of all, that's not being true to who you are, and it's not being a good message for all the other people that are struggling. Just because it takes me an hour and a half to get warmed up in the morning now doesn't mean that I don't do my best job when I'm at work, and it doesn't mean that my patients don't get better. It just means I have to accommodate my life to be able to accomplish my goals. And it's not that easy for everybody, but that's the way that I choose to look at it. I'm not one of those people who's able to see my injury as a blessing. Like I would trade for my old life in 5 seconds. I mean, I'm happy that I'm helping people now, but I would go back if I could. But you have to make the best out of it, I
was gonna say, because like that first part you're saying was like totally how I feel. But then like I see this as not as a blessing, so like I'm not like that religious, but like it's just life just happens. Like this is not a bad thing. It's just an experience that like life this is just because society or you think you should be running or jumping or doing triathlons or cycling or whatever, but if you're not doing it, then that doesn't mean that's bad for your life. It just means that your life is just not. It's not linear. It's like life just happens. Stuff just happens, and that's all life is really. So that's my grandiose vision of it. But,
my patients will say to me sometimes, like, I just want my old life back, or when am I going to be me again? And I'll say to them,
who are you?
Who are you, first of all? If you went through any experience in your life, if you had a baby, if you got married, if you graduated college, if you and your very best friend in the whole wide world had a falling out, you might be a different person than you were before that event happened. So you can't pick out your brain injury as like the thing that you're going to blame everything on. You have to realize that you shouldn't be the same person you were when you were 18 if you're now 35, right? That would be terrible. Exactly. I wouldn't go back there if you forced me to. No. But you should always be growing. And so, especially when I have patients who are a year, 2 years, I'm 4 years out, and they say that they want their old self back, I'm like, that's just not going to happen. You're 4 years older, or a year and a half of life experience is different. You're going to be part 2. You're going to be version 2.0.
Exactly.
No matter what you had been through, hopefully you'd be a new version of yourself a year later, right? Yep. And that's not to like wishy-wash over anybody's traumatic events or like how they feel or their feelings, but it's just you have to grow in life every single day and try to be a different, a better version of yourself as you move forward. And you should be in a different place every 6 months to a year. You shouldn't be just the same person for decades.
That's well better than I'm going to say it. But so I think that's great. And we have like, now 7 people. Wow, good for us. But if anyone wants to ask questions, please do, because we only got 7 here. And but I thought it would be bigger, but maybe the time zone stuff is a bit weird for people. But
it's only the first one, so I mean we'll keep growing on it.
We'll do more. But either way, anyone wants to ask a question, just type it in and we'll try to go with it. Otherwise, I'll just talk to Lauren about what do you do today, Lauren? What's your not today, but what's your normal day like for dealing with the brain injury?
So dealing with a brain injury, I work really hard. some days I'm better than others on my pacing. So for me, during the week, like my primary goal is the work day, and it is performing at my job. And everybody has different values. For some people, if you're a parent, it's being the best parent that you can be. I have dogs, so it's only so hard to be a parent to them. my primary goal is my job and helping my patients. And so I have to make good choices during the week. You know, I can't go out to dinner 3 nights in a row, or I can't do certain things. And that's okay, because quite honestly, I wouldn't want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But I have to make sure I get my rest, or I can really feel myself struggle at work. And I don't like when I have to actively work on my listening. So I like it when I'm rested and I don't have to work so hard at just doing regular things. So if I'm in a really busy environment, I often will close the door.
Hello, what happened? You froze. We got a question from Farid, or Farid. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Farid, I'm going to say, but it's only an I, so maybe it's Farid. Question: when you began recovery, what are some of the approaches for managing emotional swings, primarily the bad ones? So I will wait a second, see if Lauren comes back. But for me, let's see here. Okay, so I said James was already free. I said James a bunch of times, so I hope that's the right one. I'll go free, so you can say yes or no to that one. Anyway, yeah, just emotional swings. I didn't have. I had like when I was first starting out, so it's just that being in recovery. Lauren's trying to get back in. Anyway, when she's just really now. She'll be back soon. But yeah, when I can't say I handled them excellently. I mean, I just tried to, I have big bad emotional things, I guess. My home with my parents, and they're here back, and what happened? Where'd that go? Anyway, so I really, my emotional swings, I just. Okay, now Lauren's back, and now this is. Okay, now I'm talking to Fareed, who wrote a question, and I don't know if we got the. I'll fix the screen in a second. I'm still here though. But anyway, there's Lauren again. I'll fix it.
Sorry about that, guys.
Emotional swings, primarily the bad ones. Even your first.
Did you already answer that question?
Fridas, when you began recovery, what are some approaches for managing emotional swings, primarily the bad ones?
Oh, did you already answer that?
I didn't answer. I just rambled, but I tried to answer, but I didn't take any approaches. I just tried to deal with them best I could. That's like the answer. But you probably know more about like.
I mean, I'm not a psychotherapist, but I'm a person who's lived with a brain injury, been married with a brain injury, deal with patients all day with brain injuries, and the number one thing is being aware of the fact that you have mood swings. So sometimes patients will come in with a family member who says they get really irritable, and the patient gets even irritable at the family member saying that because they don't see it at all. So if you're aware of your own emotional swings and you're able to identify them, it's much easier to deal with versus those people who only recognize it later. If you are aware of it and you start to feel yourself get angry, or you start to feel yourself perseverate, which means you're sort of riding that carousel around on the same topic over and over and over again, you have to learn little trigger words to yourself to sort of walk away and take a deep breath. And that was really hard actually for me. I had a really hard time with emotional regulation in the beginning. And it was tough, on Scott, because I would just like go off the handle and he's like, what? I would just ask what you wanted for dinner. So I had to learn to just take a step back, and counting to 10 is a trick to calm yourself down. So some people will wear like a hair tie on their wrist and they'll slap the hair tie to help control themselves as they feel it building up. A lot of people will use meditation and mindfulness. So if you start to feel yourself getting agitated, you can cue back into those mindfulness techniques. If it's that emotional response, like you're crying, you generally will start to be able to know when you're getting overwhelmed before it happens. So if you're in a really busy restaurant and you're feeling yourself start to get that emotional response, you're starting to feel overwhelmed, you're feeling drained, you're becoming hypersensitive, it's better to excuse yourself from that situation and just be honest. People tell me a lot that they're embarrassed, if they're out for lunch with their friends and then they start to decompensate, they are embarrassed it's somebody, but it's better to be honest with your friends and say, hey, I need to excuse myself for a little bit of time, or I need to go home now, than it is to have a full-blown meltdown in the middle of a restaurant, right? Or to go home and cry for 2 days because you way overdid it. So if you're having issues with emotional regulation in the beginning, being really honest with your family members and then coming up with ways to identify when you're heading down the deep, dark path. And then if it's anger and rage, finding ways that'll bring you back down and center you again. So again, like the hair tie slapping, the centering techniques, using pressure points on your hands, counting to 10, practicing your mindfulness techniques. All of those things are really good things to use. And then, of course, awareness. Just be aware of who you are. It's okay. A lot of times you can't control it. It could be from brainstem functioning with your limbic system. It could be from frontal lobe damage. There's a lot of different reasons people have emotional swings. And it could also be that you just feel crummy and you feel isolated and you feel like people don't understand you. And that's okay, too. There doesn't have to be structural damage to your brain for you to have emotional issues. But as you identify them and work through them, they will get better. They always get better. Life always gets better. Even if it's small little pieces of improvement, it's always.
But like you said, meditation and mindfulness, and just really for me, it's just started being that. That's what I focus on now. But before it was just my rehab, my physical rehab, which is I just focused on that and getting better. And that's probably what led to a lot of my swings, a lot of my emotional swings was that I didn't have anything to focus on. And when I focused on just my rehab, I think that's one of the reasons I got better at my physical rehab. But
I think another thing that we should talk about that goes along those lines that I see a lot with patients is pacing. And there's this whole idea of I feel crummy, so I don't go anywhere. Every time I try to go to the grocery store, I feel bad, so I don't go there. And I see my patients move further and further into isolation. And so we try really hard to keep them from doing that. And I'll actually talk to them about, if they come to me 6 months out and they aren't going anywhere and they aren't doing anything, of course, every time you go somewhere, you're going to feel crummy because you have no endurance, right? If you're wearing earplugs everywhere you go or you're wearing sunglasses inside all the time, anytime you're exposed to real light, your eyes are going to hurt. And so we talk a lot about starting to get your body built up into endurance, right? So if you want to run a marathon, you're not just going to go run 26 miles. That would be crazy. I mean, some people might, but that would not be the normal person. And so I talk to them about every day this week, I want you to go to a coffee shop, or I want you to go to the library, or I want you to go to the grocery store. Pick 2 days this week where you do a big trip. Like you go to the grocery store is usually a big one for people, or you go to one of your kids' events and you sit in a quieter section, or you sit at the back of the auditorium so that you can walk out and leave if you need to, that sort of thing. And then people actually will slowly start to be able to tolerate more and more stimulus. But the more we allow ourselves to become reclusive and to not go places, the worse it's going to be every single time we go. So the one big one I use, the sunglasses are a huge one. Early on, that's fine. Wear your sunglasses 24/7. But after a while, you have to take those suckers off and expose your brain to light, or your brain is never going to tolerate being exposed to light. And so I'll use the analogy, especially the teenager. Like if mom walks in your room, or dad, walks in your room at 6 o'clock in the morning and rips open the shades and your eyes have been closed all night, it hurts and it makes you mad and your eyes are hurt and you're cranky, right? So your brain adjusts and you tolerate the light. So if you walk around with sunglasses on for 6 months, you bet your bum that the first time you go somewhere without your sunglasses on, you're going to have a headache and you're going to be irritable and your eyes are going to hurt. And it's not that you're not valid in the way that you feel, but we have to come up with a solution to the problem. And the solution is actually just exposing you to more things. So if you're someone who's watching this later or watching this now and you can't go anywhere and you feel super isolated, I really encourage you and I charge you with the mission of doing something every day, even if it's going to a local coffee shop that's relatively quiet and listening to an audiobook for 20 minutes and then you go home. If you start even just that low, you will slowly be able to tolerate more and more and more, and you'll get your life back. You'll get to be social. You'll get to go places and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, actually, my first podcast guest, Dr. Christian Goulet, he said, like, you know, if you feel sick, if you're treated as a sick person, you're gonna feel sick. You know, you're gonna be like that's like this. Like there's a talk early on, even not early on, but like even 2 or 3 years ago, that when you get a concussion, just be inside in a dark room and just don't no stimulus at all. Don't see anybody. Don't talk. Don't get on the phone. Don't look for TV. Just stay inside and don't do anything. It's just beautiful because, of course, they're being like denied everything, treated like they're sick.
Yeah, you don't want to do that dark room thing for more than about 24 to 48 hours, by the way, just so you know. That is how we end up with people who are depressed and anxious and all those things. So that's it's okay to shut it down. Like, we have people who will go dark for 24 hours, but then you want to slowly start to add back in your activity again.
Yeah. And I guess questions are limited because we lost a bunch of people.
Whoops.
Three comments through there. I bet it's all me or you. You and me got like, so I guess there's and Reed. And so that's all 4 people. So
That's all right.
What happened to her? I know I can't figure out this video thing now. Why is not swing screen as it should?
That's okay. I prefer not to be on there anyway.
Well, I can see it. So I'll tell you, it's just exactly the same shirt, a white cap, a white hat, or 2 because we're the same Canada. Yeah, so same thing. There's 3 pictures behind her. I don't know what they are. This is not where you joined in, and we got people back. I think. Do we? Yes. Okay, Ashley's back. My sister and Fareed, Leslie, and Leslie is now. How about you handle social interactions with people who don't understand brain injuries? How do you talk to them? How do you interact?
You want me to take that one?
We can both take it, but you go first because you have probably better stuff to say than I do.
So me personally, I'll be very honest about my head injury. So there was a very obvious one to me. We were meeting with the builder of our house after a work day. I was really tired, and I was standing in the middle of a room pointing at a part of the wall, and I said, that's where the thing goes. It's not a bureau, it's not a wardrobe. You put your clothes in it. And my husband knows you're really not supposed to help the person find the word, but in a social situation, it's great when you do help the person. You cover for them so they don't look like an idiot. But the builder is just looking at me weirder and weirder and weirder, and I'm getting so frustrated. But that makes aphasia worse. Like, you can't find the word the more frustrated that you get. And so I'm acting out, pulling out the drawer, and I'm pointing at the wall, and and then finally I go, the dresser. It's where we could put the dresser. And I could have just moved on with wardrobe or bureau and totally covered for myself, but I was tired and I was breaking down and I wanted that word. And the builder looks at me and he's like looking at me like there's something wrong with this person. And I just said to him straight up, I was like, sorry, I had a brain injury and sometimes it's hard for me to find my words. And then he sort of took a step back and almost was embarrassed, like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, don't be sorry. It's just that's why I couldn't find the word, and my husband decided not to help me, and he wanted to watch me flounder. And Scott's laughing, and so you could, sometimes it's super embarrassing, and sometimes when you're having a conversation with a doctor or whatever, and you can't find the right word, it's embarrassing, but I try to just be lighthearted about it when I can. I have patients who it makes them feel horrible, and they're really anxious about it, and they'll limit their social interactions because they don't want people to know or to stare at them or to judge them in any way. And it's so hard to try to encourage those people, but then also be cognizant of their feelings and allow them to feel validated, because there are moments where it's embarrassing and there are moments where it's tough, and you just have to find what works best for you. So I have a patient who she says she walks funny, but she has an antalgic gait. She has some balance issues. She's got like, you know, some other things going on. And I told her you have a couple options. Like, you can just tell people that you have a knee injury. People are constantly saying to her, you know, why are you limping? And it really affects her. And it's unfortunate. Like, people should mind their own business, but we can't as humans. We're very nosy. So people say to her, why are you limping? And I told her, just tell them you have a knee injury. That's what I do. Like, if I don't feel like telling somebody my swan song, I'll tell them, oh, I slipped and I hurt my knee the other day. And they're, okay, oh, I'm so sorry. I hope you get better. And we move on. So you just have to come up with what you're comfortable with. Not everybody's comfortable with saying that they had a brain injury. Say they have a headache. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm feeling off today. I have a headache. Or I'm feeling a little down. I think I might be getting sick. Or you could just straight up say, you know what? My brain's not processing right today. I hit my noggin too many times.
Yeah,
So it just depends on your own outlook on life and where your level of comfort is.
Yeah, actually, because you were saying the knee injury thing. When I was, I guess I was just a few years out, like 4 years out, 3 years out from my brain injury. And I swam like twice a week. And when I go to the pool, there were like often kids there in the change rooms around the deck. And I was in there one day and I got changed up, heading out, sorry, they go, there's the aphasia, whatever it is. I don't know what happened. Heading out the pool deck. And dysarthria is what it's called, I believe.
That's what you have.
Okay, there you go. Anyway, it's indestructibility, I guess. Anyway, I was heading up the pool deck, and kids saw me, like, I walk, I guess a limp, but it's kind of like a limp and stagger. And so I was walking and said, so what happened? Sorry, he was a really nice kid, just like, what happened to you? He was there with his dad. And I told him I broke my legs. He was like, really? How long ago? I was like a month ago. And I saw him, and so I was like, that worked. That was fine. Then I actually saw him, like, geez, probably 3 years later. 2 years later, and he remembered me, and he said, your leg is so broken. And I was like, yeah, well, I broke it, like, really badly. I was like, I never told him I had a brain injury. And I think that was, I felt kind of bad about that, because he was actually wanting to know what happened, and he was obviously a bright kid and observant kid, but I never told him that I had a brain injury. But I think the whole parental people goes back to what you were saying about the version, being comfortable with version 2.0 of yourself.
Yeah.
Like the new version of you, like, so you can just tell people, oh, I had a brain injury, or like, oh, sorry, I don't understand. Yeah, I had a brain injury, or I knocked my head a bunch of times, like, and like, and just kind of like comfortable. It's kind of simple, kind of like, I simplify it too much, saying just be comfortable with yourself and just be confident that you had a brain injury, and like, so confident that that's a good enough reason for you, then good enough for them. Like it's just like don't like just assume that, oh, they don't understand, screw them. They understand because they haven't seen it, so it's not like screw them. It's just let them know, feel comfortable with yourself, and be confident enough in yourself that you just feel like it doesn't matter what they think of it. It matters that they know. And
I think it's good education too. Like, the more people understand the variety of deficits that are out there, like they call us, so those of us who are brain injury survivors are concussion. We have a lot of concussions. Like, that was mine, as I just had too many, and my brain said, all right, you're done. You can't hit your head anymore. But I think that we're called the walking wounded because sometimes you look fine. Like, you look like the lights are on in someone's home, but like you're not having a good day, or you feel different than you used to feel, and it's your own personal interpretation of what you look like to the outside world. Whereas, like, most people are so self-centered and interested in what they're doing that they're really not. They don't notice the difference from one to the other. Or for me, like, so being relatively higher functioning, it was really, I live far away from most of my family and friends, and so I would tell them about things that I was having trouble with. And I would get a lot of like that pushback that patients talk about, like people don't believe me or they're judging me. And I don't think anybody that I know was judging me in a negative way. I think that they were just like not understanding where I was coming from. And I think that they were maybe confused, or maybe they thought I have a little flair for the dramatic sometimes. Maybe they thought I was embellishing. And so I went home and I was with a couple really good friends of mine that I've been friends with since middle school. and we were talking, and they never really understood my memory loss. So I have long-term memory loss. If I talk about something or I see a picture, it comes back, but I could never sit here and just like BS with you about old days unless you told me what we used to do in the old days, unless you told me what the old days were. And so I was talking to them, and they're like, wait, you really don't remember that? You really don't remember that? And it got me a little upset because it makes me feel sad that I don't remember. But then I was like, there's nothing I can do. I mean, I've tried the therapy, and I kind of have moved on. And it was dawning. It was interesting to watch their faces because you could see the moment where it clicked to them that the injury was real and that they had kind of not understood what was going on because we live a little bit far away, and I can mask it and I can fake it when I talk to them for 10 minutes and they wouldn't know the difference. But when you're with someone for hours, they're like, oh my God, you are a lot different than you used to be. And I'm like, yeah, I wasn't lying to you. Life is harder now.
Like, I mean, when they're close friends and families, also, they just forget, like, that you ever had, like, they're really close. They forget you ever had a brain injury. There's, like, no you as Lauren or me as Nick and this, like, except that, and then they talk about old days, or you're like, I don't remember, or I'm not sure, or whatever. And it's just, they just kind of assume that this forget they even had a brain injury, or that, like, if they're close friends, they've known for a while. So.
Yeah, or they're like, you can ski, so if you can ski, how can you say that you still have an injury or whatever? Yeah. But like, people who are blind can ski. Yeah. People who are paralyzed can ski. Just because you're out skiing doesn't mean you don't have headaches or fatigue or whatever your symptoms are. Maybe it's numbness, I don't know. Whatever it is, that you experience, it doesn't take away from how sick you are. And that's how people end up in this sick role that we were talking about earlier, is like, oh, if I do that, then people are going to think that I could go to work 40 hours a week, or, you know, whatever your impairments are, do all the things that you can do. Like if something makes you happy, it doesn't matter if somebody else thinks that you must be fine if you can do that one thing, because you can't live in that role of what other people think a person with a brain injury should be. And the more people that they meet who have had brain injuries, and they start to see the wide array of what we're able to do, people will start to change their perceptions, just like they have about everything else in history, right?
Yeah, geez, history is deep. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's just I do a lot of, like, I swim and I yoga, Pilates, but like, I can't jump, and I can't ride a bike really with any, well, not really at all. But I can ride a bike, and I can't jump, and I can't play wobble like I used to a lot of it because of my double vision and my coordination and stuff. So I mean, I can't. I don't do it. So but I do. I enjoy it, and that's helps me. And but I mean, just because people think, oh, you do this, you swim, and you keep yourself fit and active, then you should be able to work like whatever, how many hours a week, or you should be able to stay out late or stay out or party with friends or whatever. But or sit in a chair, even like sitting in a chair. I find that like sitting in a chair for a long period of time, like eating at a restaurant, I find that can be difficult too. And it can be confined, like especially if it depends on the restaurant. But I think if it's a good restaurant, I can stay there. But yeah, but I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. That's like, just because you can't do some stuff doesn't mean you can't do other stuff.
Right. And that's just people, like when someone says to you, like, Nick, why can't you work full time if you can do this or that? I mean, that's not anything to do with you. Yeah. And it's hard when you're the person who's on the receiving end of it. It's hard to take a step back and be like, they're probably having a bad day, or this has nothing to do with me. Yeah. And it's hard to like rationalize that with yourself. But that's the fact of the matter. Like, that person doesn't know anything about your everyday life or what you're doing. And so they have no way of knowing whether or not you could work or what capacity you could work. You know, if I have a patient who can't work, I do encourage them to volunteer. I encourage them to go and do something every day, because I don't think anybody should be, you know, sitting at home. And by the way, Nick, you do work because you have your podcast and you wrote a book and you go on speaking engagements. Yeah. So.
It's not many speaking. Last time speaking engagement was actually November. No, that's a lie. I don't want to say it was June of 2016. Or no, March of 2017. But anyway, yeah.
Well, you've been a little preoccupied this year,
I have been a little bit busy this year. Other things.
I think that's fair. But I'm just saying, like, you've been able, with all of the things that you deal with and the double vision, it's sort of ironic that you have double vision all the time, but you wrote a book.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? We can always keep pushing ourselves.
That's the thing I can read, so I can read fine. Like, I don't need to cover an eye, I need to do this. I can just read like normally. But that's because I think that's because I started reading maybe like 3 months in our pantry, like after I got out of the coma. When I got to rehab, I started reading. When I got back home, I couldn't read because I couldn't. My double vision was so new.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents would read to me, and in the hospital, they come to the hospital after work or whatever, or even after work during the day. And they'd read to me, read books to me, and I'd sit there like I was like 5 years old. I was 23 years old, but it was good to get a few hairs. See, I have carrots on the bottom screen there. That's a a few little likes, little hearts on the bottom screen there. You're crazy. They go across. Anyway, but if anyone would like to ask questions at all, because you got 7 people again, we're hitting peaks here, Lauren. Like 10 people.
Peaks and valleys.
7 people. We had a low of like 4, and now it's like up to 7. Wow! But thank you everyone for coming, and it's almost Kelly just joined. Kelly, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions, otherwise, I mean, we can sort of wrap this up here soon. But don't be shy to ask, and we'll do our best to answer them in a reasonable fashion.
A reasonable place. But yeah, Lauren, I don't know if you can, I can see Lauren, but none of you can. But she's here, and the screen got messed up from something when Lauren was disconnected a while ago.
What resources would you recommend for practitioners? Oh, okay. So, thanks. Yeah, besides Phoenix Concussion Recovery. So when people message me about they want to get into treating concussion, so they'll send me an email like, hey, what would you recommend? I always recommend that you go to whatever is the most convenient national conference for concussion. There's now there's a lot of them. There used to be, like 5 or 6. The same 8 to 10 people speak at all of these conferences. They kind of just travel around and do their talk. So look at a couple of them and compare the names, and then go to one that's convenient to you, that's a reasonable price, that has some of these really common big names in the concussion field. That'll give you a great overview of what the latest research is, what you should be doing with your patients, and then depending on your specialty. So a physical therapist, that would be my specialty. I love Karen Scopp's course with North American Seminars. She does a great vision and vestibular sort of combined weekend course. And it's not enough to be able to do everything, but it's a great way to show you like what you know, what you don't know. She's great with the whole, you're not going to come out of here like an advanced specialist, but you're going to come out of here able to treat people and not hurt anyone. And you're going to have a really good understanding of vision therapy and vestibular therapy. And then if you really want to build a specialty practice, after you've done something like a Karen Scott course, who's amazing again, and you've done a big national conference, and pick what you want to do next. So maybe you want to specialize in the whiplash injury component and cervicogenic or dizziness coming from the neck, so cervicogenic dizziness. You can go to courses that specialize in that. If you want to go down the route that I went down and do vision and vestibular therapy, I did a vision course that was taught by an eye doctor, which I value so very, very much, because vision therapy is really its own specialty, and that's one of my big missions, is that vision therapy is not a portion of vestibular therapy, and I don't care how many friends I lose over that statement. I'm going to continue to say it until someone takes my voice piece away. Vision therapy is a specialty that physical therapists can do, but it should be done under the direction of an eye doctor, because we can actually cause harm to people. So someone like Nick, who has a nerve palsy and double vision, we can help someone like that, but you have to know what you're doing, or you could actually make the situation a lot worse. So I recommend Dr. Scheinman's course. He's out of the East Coast, but he teaches all over the country. I went to his course in like Vegas or LA or something like that. And then I liked, oh, sorry, Nick, what?
I was saying this country is the U.S., by the way.
Oh, sorry, the U.S. He might teach in Canada. I don't actually know, but you guys are more than welcome to come on down and hang out with us.
Same people at every conference, like across Canada. Now, of course, Newfoundland is difficult to get the conferences because it's tougher to get places from here. But
yeah.
but
And there's some good online content too. Like you could get CEUs, continuing ed units online. If you're a physician, there's courses that are specific to physicians. But again, these big national conferences are a great place to go because they cater to all different kinds of professions. And then I would just do your research and find people who are reputable in the field and be very wary of the easy CEUs. Like in 2 hours, you're going to be amazing at this super complicated task, like vestibular therapy. You can't learn vestibular therapy in 2 hours. It's not possible. You can learn small pieces, specialist. And then be wary of these courses that are outrageous amounts of money as well. So like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. You know, there's a huge part of our specialties that are clinical practice and clinical reasoning skills. And unfortunately, just as it is for our patients right now, where there are treatment centers that are $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000, there are continuing ed courses that are the same. And we want to be careful that we're getting good content without being taken advantage of. So I hope that answers your question.
I don't know what the question that was. I can't see any questions. So I can't read any questions, but it's me. You have better.
Oh, the question was, what do we recommend for practitioners who want to improve their practice?
Oh, well, then that's all you. But where'd you read this? Because I can't see anything.
Oh, it was on the Facebook Live.
My Facebook Live.
Then he wrote Indeed.
He's asking questions, and he's asked 2, and Leslie's asked 1. And anyone else want to pose a question? Please feel free. And I'm trying to get people to come to Twitter and ask, but nothing happening. But yeah, so I don't know if we have any more questions or not, but
we can plan to do another one of these, and then maybe people will be feeling more spicy, like they want to get in there and ask. Oh, here we go.
Leslie, my sister.
When are you planning on doing another one of these?
Good question, Leslie. Yeah, when do you want to do another one?
If people like this format, why don't we try to do one like once a month or something?
That's
and if
great.
they like the YouTube ones where we actually plan them out, we could just do that. But we try to do one at least once a month, if not every 2 weeks.
That sounds good to me. And those YouTube ones, that was a bit ornery. That was tough to figure out. Because you got to download stuff and download, I don't know, software and figure it out. But this works well. And if we can get a good split screen format going on there for a bit, but then we lost it. So now Lauren is hiding behind, I don't know, whatever. She's on Skype now. But can people think question? They sure can, Lizzie. Yes, okay. I answer your question now. I spread it. Nice. Well, thanks. We'll try to get these. Great. Thank you for your spread the word. And Leslie, you can definitely ask questions in advance because you can ask me anytime because I'm your brother. But just call and ask me or text me the question. But yeah, but on Facebook or Twitter.
Well, thanks, guys, so much. I'm glad you tuned in. I hope that it was informative and you got something you were looking for. Or else I hope you at least ate some popcorn and enjoyed yourself.
Exactly. And we'll do one that we think every like another month or 2 weeks. But we'll ever know. Again, Facebook and Twitter and whatever, Instagram, we'll ever know when we're gonna have one. But we'll do one again soon. And I think so. Well, and otherwise, I mean, check out Lauren's Facebook page, Phoenix Concussion Recovery on Facebook and just her website, which is Lauren. It's only your website.
PhoenixConcussionRecovery.com. And then I'm on Twitter at LZ Concussion, so my initials, Concussion. And then I also have a Facebook page, which I'll tag here too, so Phoenix Concussion Recovery. Oh, there's Melinda. Hi, Melinda. That's our co-founder, and she runs Think Head First in Park City.
Nice. And just geez, I just called Lauren. Okay, my website is www.concussiontalk.com, and of course you know I have a Facebook page because John, you're watching this, and And check out our Lauren Phoenix Concussion Recovery podcast on Concussion Talk podcast. And I will do it. Thanks, Lauren. I'll do
Okay,
it.
thank you.
I'll do a podcast also soon, I guess. I'm not sure on what, but I'll find people. I found Lauren actually in 2016. She did, I was searching podcasts about concussions, and she even one with American Physical Therapy Association. So it's like in the article called Queen of Concussions. So I contacted
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I contacted her and her back. We did a podcast in 2016, and then found out she was starting her own site and stuff in 2017. So I contacted her about doing a podcast. So we've done 6, kind of 7, 6 part 1 and part 2. So 7 podcasts, I guess. And this is not a podcast, but it's same idea.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't count this. We're not count this a podcast, are we? This is a distinct event. Facebook Live.
Okay.
So but this won't be on. We'll try to get this on YouTube though. And,
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Check in next time.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Thanks, everybody. I'll end this broadcast as they say now.